You were slow to the game on this, that you vetoed the budget that included a lot of money here in the state for addiction recovery. There have been some ads, some controversy around this, but what do you say to those who say, look, you could have jumped in right away. Instead, you vetoed that budget. The budget that ended up passing was pretty much the budget that was debated at first. So I just wonder how you respond to the fact that you were kind of slow here in the state to jump on this.
Well, I think that the characterization and the narrative that you just laid out is pretty flawed. So let's go back. At every step of my governorship, I have been working to address both behavioral health and substance misuse issues from, again, right out of the gate as governor, proposing funding for our drug task force teams so that we could keep them going, to ongoing advocacy for our Medicaid expansion bill. And I wish that the legislature had passed that Medicaid expansion bill in my very first year in office. They chose not to, but we got it done by continuing to be tenacious and continuing to focus on the behavioral health and substance abuse funding that came with that. I stood up for fiscal responsibility on the budget discussions because, one, the numbers that were presented to me in that budget didn't add up, and I knew that because of that, that budget would undermine future attempts to fund substance abuse. The budget had less funding than I had proposed for substance misuse. At every stage of the way, I have been fighting for substance misuse funding and have had to push very, very hard after we had our budget compromise. And here's a real difference between Washington and what we've been able to do in New Hampshire. We had our budget dispute, but we came together across party lines. We got people to the table, and we got a bipartisan budget compromise that did have some funding. While, by the way, during the budget dispute, we kept government running and we kept funding going. Then, because we still needed more to do on substance misuse funding, I called for a special session. I put together a comprehensive proposal, and the legislature took a long time to get the funding done that I had proposed now about a year ago, but it's out the door. And that's a real difference between Washington and what we see in Washington and what we've been able to do in New Hampshire.
Sheila,